All right, guys. So this is going to be a demo on perspective, and what we're doing is I'm going to do a series where you're going to do three practice drawings, and I'm just going to have you do something in 1 point perspective, something in 2 point, and something with 3 point. And I'm going to keep these first practice drawings. They're just kind of like simple refreshers on how to do 1 and 2 point, and then 3 point will be completely new. But we're going to do a similar example for each. So it's going to be kind of different than like what we did in Intro to Art, but also similar enough that you'll kind of know what we're doing. But just think of this as a refresher. Some of you maybe haven't had as much experience with perspective, so I want you to have that base understanding. So you're going to do these three practice drawings, and then after that, you're going to design an actual perspective project on larger paper. So there's more details on that in Google Classroom, and I'll talk to you guys in class and probably have a separate video on that. So this first video, we're going to start with 1 point perspective. So I'm just going to remind you guys about the basics of 1 point. And what we're going to do for these three drawings is we're going to try to draw like a city street corner with some buildings. And we're going to choose buildings just because they're simple rectangles. It's the most simple base way to start with perspective. And then we can go in and add details from there. Okay. So to start your drawing, these practice drawings should be just on like normal 9 by 12 white paper, or like if you're working at home and you just have a piece of printer paper, that would be fine. Um, I'm pretty sure I did not put enough paper for all this in your kits if you're at home. So if you just like whatever paper you have, if you don't have any like 9 by 12 white, piece of printer paper would work, notebook paper, whatever you can draw it on, or you could draw it digitally as well. And I have a link to a digital program as well. So the first thing we need to start with perspective is we want a horizon line. And the horizon line is basically where the sky meets the ground, and everything above the horizon line will be the sky, and everything below it will be the ground. Well, we're going to kind of do like where we're looking at like a city kind of from a distance. And so we want to have a lot of room on the ground to show these city buildings. So we're going to put the horizon line pretty high up. So I'm going to go kind of up here, and the horizon line is just a horizontal line straight across your paper. So keep in mind, I'm drawing this digitally, but that's just so you guys can more clearly see everything. If I'm drawing this by hand, like with pencil, you might not be able to see it as well with the camera and everything. So I think this works good for demonstrations. But for you guys, most of you should just be drawing this with pencil and paper. But if you're working from home, you do have the option to do this digital if you want to, but pencil and paper would be preferred if you have the ability to do so. Okay. All right, I'm gonna make my horizon line a little bit thinner there. All right, so the horizon line should just be kind of a light, thin line. Now, keep in mind, with perspective, all of your lines should be drawn very lightly, so that you can erase them, because a lot of lines are going to be guidelines that get erased. So don't draw all your lines super dark. That's the other reason I'm kind of doing it digital, so that my lines can be dark so you can see it, but then I can still fully erase it and all that fairly easily. So you guys should be drawing very lightly. Okay, so the horizon line basically determines where the sky is and where the ground is. Okay, in 1 point perspective, we have one vanishing point. So the vanishing point is the main thing that these different perspectives will have. So a vanishing point is just a dot somewhere on the horizon line. So we're going to put this one on the far left, and we're just going to like make a dot over here. Okay. So that dot there is going to be my vanishing point. A vanishing point is basically the point where something gets so far away in distance that it starts to disappear. Okay. Um, so when we're drawing objects going back in 1 point perspective, we're only going to use the one vanishing point. That's all we're going to have. So 2 point will have two vanishing points, and 3 point will have three. So that's kind of the difference between where we get the names there. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just drawing like kind of a group of city buildings on the corner. Okay. So in 1 point perspective, and this is what you kind of have to remember when you're doing 1, 2, or 3 point, the way you start a basic block is different with each one. So that's what these demos are going to be good for, is just help you remember, how do I even just start drawing something in each type of perspective. So in 1 point perspective, you always just start by drawing a shape. So I'm going to draw like my first building. So let's say my first building is going to be kind of a taller building like this. And I'm just going to draw like a big rectangle out here like that. Okay. So you take your ruler and then just draw each of those lines separate. Now my video is going to go too fast for you because I can really quickly generate these. So just make sure you're pausing when you need to, draw the step, and then unpause and watch the next part. Okay. Now the general rule here, when you're just drawing like a basic rectangle or square, is you want to take all the corners and draw them to the vanishing point that you can. So I'm going to take this corner, and this corner. Okay. just like that. Perfect. So we're gonna do something like that, and then we're just gonna pretend that this is like a tall building as a part of my city, right? Um, then what I'm gonna do is as a guide, so this is where it's gonna diverge. This is gonna be a little bit different because we're gonna make this like a row of buildings. So we're gonna kind of keep these guides on here for now. Um, we're gonna have like the front facing of where the buildings could go here, right? So what I'm gonna do is along the bottom here, I'm just gonna make a guideline going all the way across so I know where like the bottoms of all of my buildings would go. Okay. And then we can make a guideline across the top here as well. And we'll just draw that across like that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to like add new buildings into this and how to finish the first one. So this here is going to be my first building. And so on this left side here, this is the part where it has depth and it's going back in space. So I don't want this one building to be super long going all the way back. So all we need to do is we make a vertical line to cut it off. Okay. And one of the general rules with 1 point perspective, your lines, you're either going to start with a shape or like any line that you draw will typically either be a vertical line, or if it's not a vertical line, then it's probably going to go to the vanishing point. So any line that you would technically consider to be like a horizontal line or a line that would be going like sideways or back in space, that would use the vanishing point. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick how wide I want this building to be. I'm going to pick a spot here like on the corner, and I'm just going to draw a vertical line going down like this. Okay. So now that becomes the left side of my building. And then what I do to get the back corner, this is going to be the roof of the building right here. I just take this back corner and I'm going to make a horizontal line that is parallel to this first line. So just make sure that this line and this line are both like nice and parallel to each other. Okay. So that's kind of what we want to do there. So there's my first building. So you can kind of see this big rectangular structure sticking out. Now, let's say I wanted to add another building right next to this, okay? So what you would do is you kind of have this framework here and you can build the next building into it. So what you would do is you would pick how much of a gap you want in between the buildings. Let's say the next building is going to be here. I could just take a vertical line. So if I hold, or well, yeah, we'll just go here and just do a perfect vertical line like this with your ruler, okay? And this is going to be like kind of starting another building. And then what you'd want to do is we're basically mimicking the rectangle here in the front. So this bottom corner, I would just make a horizontal line straight over like that. And then on top, I would make a horizontal line straight over here as well. So what I would do is I would go here and I would just make this line straight over. And I'm just going to go until I hit that line. Okay, like that. And then right here where I hit this line, I'm going to take that and go straight down. Okay, so we've kind of built it in between. And we'll erase some lines now so it's a little less confusing. So if you take your eraser, this little gap in between here, we can erase this out. This little line up here, we can erase this out. Okay, and then this line here, we can erase this out. So the whole idea is you're having those the next building kind of fall within. And now you can see they're starting to separate. We can kind of see that here's a new building that's hiding behind. Now we still have to finish the second building, right? Now, part of what happens in perspective that you'll notice as things get farther away, they get smaller and they get skinnier. Okay. So that's going to go for the building as well. So notice how my left side of the building, this is kind of the width of it here. Let's say these two buildings were the exact same height in real life and the same size. The width here should be longer than the width here. So when I make this vertical line, I just need to make sure it's like a little bit skinnier than I did it on the first one. So I'm going to make my line like right here. And when I say it's skinnier, what I mean is this gap right here is a little bit skinnier than this gap here. And then once I've determined that, I can go on this top corner now and I can go horizontal like this. Okay. All right. So there's my second building. So you could see if I were to erase this, you could see the two buildings next to each other. Now, someone might say, well, what if I want to do a building that is shorter? And you totally could do a building that's shorter. It doesn't have to go up to this line, right? So what I could do is I could maybe just ignore these guidelines. So let's say I don't want it to be as tall. What I could do is I could actually, maybe for the rest of this, I decide I want to take these guidelines out because the rest of my buildings maybe aren't going to be that exact same height. So any building that would be the exact same height as these, that would be the guideline for that. So maybe I'm going to erase that for now. Okay. All right, so let's say I want to put another building. Now, this bottom line is important because all the buildings should have the same bottom that they're on. So let's say I want to make another building, but I want it to be shorter. Okay, so all you do is for this one, you would start with a rectangle, right? But that might be kind of tricky. So um, because you might not know exactly where to draw it. So what you do is you want to just anchor on like one of these bottom corners here. And once again, if you look at the gap between the buildings here, the gap for the next building should be a little bit shorter. So I'm going to start like right here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a vertical line, but I'm going to make it maybe a little bit shorter. I'm going to say that this is going to be a shorter building. Okay, and then all that you would have to do here is just do a horizontal line off of both of these here to the right, and that's going to be like the starting rectangle, but it's going to get covered up by the building next to it, so you can't quite see it all the way. Okay, so something like that. So that's going to be the start of my next building. And then all I would do now is I would take this corner to the vanishing point. Okay, and now I've got the left side here. I decide how wide I want this building to be. So then I would do like a vertical line here. Okay, and then from this back corner, then I just do a horizontal line to the right. And if I want that building totally tucked behind, I could go like that. If I decided that maybe the corner was, right here, I might be able to see a little bit, but you could kind of decide. But we'll say that's just a shorter building that's kind of tucked and hiding behind there. Okay. Now I'm not going to sit and draw the whole city. And this is like this is meant to be a practice drawing for you guys. So there's going to be some criteria I want, but you don't have this doesn't have to be like a fully fleshed out finished drawing. So let's say I'm going to be done with this left side for now. But realistically, you could have the buildings going all the way back and you could do a ton of them there, right? Now let's say I want to add another building on the right side. So remember how we made these two guidelines here at the top? What we do on this side is because we're doing 1 point perspective, this is just going to be a series of rectangles, right? So literally, if I want to do a building that's the same height, I literally would just pick what kind of a gap I want in between the buildings, draw a big rectangle and try to make it roughly the same size if, say, it was going to be the exact same size as the last one, right? So we've got that there. And then all I'm going to do is take my corners to the vanishing point. So if I take this bottom corner, now you wouldn't have to draw that all the way to the vanishing point. So what you could do is with your ruler, line up your ruler with the vanishing point in the corner, but then you would only draw up till here, till you like hit the building, right? And then this side I would take to the vanishing point. Um, and that one I'll just let go all the way through for now. And then I'll take this corner to the vanishing point here. Okay. And then once again, you're just going to decide how wide the building is. So maybe it does go behind, um, or maybe it's a little bit skinnier. That's up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that my building, well, actually, what I would do is I would want to line it up with the back of this building, probably, right? So if I take this back line that I already have here and just draw a guideline across, that there is now going to instantly show me where the back of this building is. And I can take this top corner right here where it crosses and just go straight down like that. Okay. So perspective can get kind of confusing, especially when you have all these lines crossing. But once you get the hang of it, it makes a little bit more sense. The thing with perspective that's different than other types of drawing, um, because in most drawing, there isn't really like a right or a wrong way to do things. There's a lot of different ways you can go about making a successful drawing and a lot of different styles that look good. But with perspective, it's like a very mathematical thing. Like there's a very precise way to do it. So if you're someone that maybe struggles at drawing, you might still be really good at this because you might be someone that's really mathematical. You might be really good at following directions and understanding the patterns and how things go. So when you're in that situation, um, you could actually be really successful at this. All right, so we're just going to do one more quick little example here, and then this first drawing will be just about done. Um, so let's say I want to do another building but shorter. It's pretty easy. So we'd go here. Once again, choose your gap in between. Just make your rectangle a little bit shorter over here. Just make sure the bottom lines up with that bottom guide. And then just use your same vanishing points again. So we'd go up here. Once again, I would probably just like stop when I hit the building, or maybe that one's gonna be a little bit skinnier and maybe I'll stop right there. Okay, and then once again, line up with the vanishing point. Okay, but then just put it where it belongs here. And then just do a vertical line to connect. Okay, and then we'll take this top line this way, and then just kind of get that angle down. And then from this back corner, it just goes over horizontally. So perfect horizontal line this way until it connects up, and then you'd erase your extra, okay? All right, so you can see how I could start to build out something. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna quickly show you some other like little detail type things we could do. But I don't wanna go, like, too crazy because, like I said, we're gonna be doing 3 of these drawings, so they don't have to be too crazy, but let's say I wanna put, like, a road on here. So I could very easily just go from this left vanishing point, and now let's put the road next to the city. So let's say the road goes to, like, here. So it's literally just an angle from the vanishing point, and you just choose where it goes, like, how far away you want it from the city. And then maybe I do the other side of the road here like this, and maybe it goes down. And then from this part of the road, I could just make like a horizontal line this way, and then that could be the road there. So you can see how that road kind of goes around a corner like that. And you can kind of see that we're down at a distance. And this line here, those could stay and be like another road, off in the background or something like that. So that's basically it for that. And then like you could add other details like windows and things like that as well. So I've got other videos that show like how to do windows and all those crazy things. So I think I'm going to keep this simple. But all I would want you guys to do is just try to have at least maybe like 4 or 5 of these like plain rectangle buildings just so you get a hang of it. And then I want you to have a light source. So what I want you to do is like, let's say you put like a sun up here, right? And that's going to be your light source. What I would want you to do then is with that light source, I would want you to try to accurately shade these how you think they would be shaded. So if and I'll see if I can kind of do like a digital version of it here. Um, so if my light source is coming like this, the top of the building should basically be white or like really light. And then like this back end is the complete opposite of the sun. So that's going to be like the darkest value. So like, for example, oh yeah, see, it's not going to work. So they're not perfectly connected. But what I would do is, okay, this one I can do it. So this one here you can see is like a darker value. And then this front end here might be like a lighter value, and then that top end might be the lightest. So with your pencil, determine which sides are the darkest, and then you would consistently do that. So I don't know. Yep. So that one would work here. So like this little guy back here, like that would be the darkest. And then this side would be lighter, and then the top would be the lightest, except it kind of leaked out there because I'm using just a cheap little paint program. But you get the idea that all these would have like a similar shading. And then you could even do like drop shadows as well, right? So the cast shadow would always come out of the dark side, so it would be coming out in this direction. You could almost think of it in perspective, actually. Um, it won't look the greatest because of what I'm doing, but this is my light source, right? So if my light source were coming from here, I could actually kind of line it up with the corners down here of this building. And if I were to actually like draw a cast shadow, it would be coming out in this direction. So my cast shadow would actually be following that. So you can kind of use perspective. So like here's my light source here, and we go to these bottom 2 corners here. Okay, we did that. Okay, so then if I were like doing a cast shadow, let me just grab really quick here. This is gonna look kind of cheesy, but like this whole area then, well, actually paint bucket might work. Let me see. Yeah, so like this here would be like my cast shadow coming out that way, and this here would be my cast shadow coming out that way, if it didn't leak through. So if you're actually shading this with pencil, you could actually like do some cast shadows over that and kind of get that same effect using kind of a perspective with the light source to kind of understand that a little bit. So for this first practice drawing, just do a little something like I had, just like a little mini city with a few buildings. They don't have to have a lot of detail. If you have extra time and you want to draw like doors and windows on there, you can. I'm not going to demo it in this video, but just ask me in person if you're not sure how to do that. But I have tons of other demo videos from like intro to art where I draw windows and things like that. So, and you could add other fun details to this as well. But for practice drawing, I just want something basic so that you can draw these basic forms with 1 point. Okay. So draw this out on a 9 by 12 white, shade with pencil value. At least you wouldn't have to do all of them, but shade at least maybe 2 buildings fully with cast shadow, and I would call that acceptable. But once again, if you want to shade more than that and add more detail, like that's totally up to you. Okay. So this will be it for the 1 point perspective demo drawing.